Chapter 27. Aleister Crowley. These satanic psychopaths believe that Lucifer and Satan are two distinctly separate entities. Lucifer is their god of light, knowledge, science, logic and philosophy, whereas Satan is their god of chaos and destruction, and Jehovah, the Christian God, is their sworn enemy. This is a quote by John Hamer. I cannot write a topic about Satanism without including some information about 33rd degree Freemason. Crowley, although he proudly boasted of being a 90th degree Mason, he was an occultist and Satanist who wrote the Book of Law, Magic in Theory and Practice, and the Book of Thoth, which are used in occult circles. His Book of Law is the most well-known, and he claimed that it was written using a process called automatic handwriting, which I covered in my own book entitled Unlocking a Gift, From Psychic to Medium to Channel. Crowley claimed that the information for the Book of Law was channeled from a higher being called Aiwass or Aiwass. This entity said that he had lived in Chaldea during the reign of Hammurabi around 1750 BC, but in later books he identified Aiwass as being his own genius. He used the Book of Law as a Bible for his own religion named Thelema. Crowley looked at man as being a sleeping god who gradually started to understand what powers he possesses. He taught that Satan was identical to the Sumerian devil god called Shaitan, who he stated had been worshipped in the Egyptian deserts long before the age of the pharaohs. Crowley was a drug and sex addict and was addicted to opium, hash, cocaine, mescaline, amphetamines and heroin in order to perceive higher states of being. When he found mescaline, he developed 7 rituals named Rites of Eleusis and rented Caxton Hall to demonstrate them. Later he opened up a temple of Satan in London where many high society ladies became his pupils. At this time he shaved his head and filed his canine teeth so sharp that he could initiate every new woman with a kiss of the snake, as he gave them a bite on the wrist or in the throat. His organization was named the Ordo Templi Orientis, and was geared towards the achievement of a world-spanning empire. The Ordo was a secret order that he was the Grand Master of. He rejected morality in favor of being a drug addict and womanizer, and enjoyed his nickname of the wickedest man in the world. Married twice, both his wives went insane and his 5 mistresses committed suicide. Born in Warwickshire, England, he revolted against a strict religious childhood, where his father, a preacher, hounded him to get right with God, and his mother referred to him repeatedly as a beast. He left his studies to become initiated into the secret order of the Golden Dawn in 1898. After a while he got into conflict with the leaders and went to Mexico. From there he traveled to India and Ceylon, where he studied both yoga and Buddhism. In Egypt in 1904, his wife Rose asked him to sit with her whilst she went into a trance. My father used to do the same. She spoke a message to him saying that he's waiting for you. She said that him was Horus, the god of wars and the son of Osiris in old Egyptian mythology. Crowley didn't believe her at first, so he began asking questions in order to reveal her as a fraud, but Rose gave him correct answers. A message given to Crowley was to sit down at his desk at a certain time for 3 days in a row. He obeyed, and in these 3 days he wrote the Book of Law using automatic handwriting, meaning that his hand was moving by another force other than his own. Crowley's messenger taught that the old age of Osiris soon would be followed by the new age of Horus, but first Earth must bathe in blood and there should be a world war. The Book of Law told of a race of superhumans, and it condemned the old religions, the pacifism, democracy, compassions and humanity. Let my servants be few and secret, they shall reign over the many and the known, the messenger continued. The messenger also said that the lower races should be humiliated and condemned and even killed. It taught no mercy. Crowley experimented with a ritual in New York called the Imalantra, working to create a vortex or portal through which entities could manifest. He did this with an entity named Lam and made a drawing of his messenger named Lam, and it bizarrely looks like that of a grey alien, and the drawing was made long before the Roswell incident where grey aliens were found. The messenger declared that Crowley was the beast, 666, from the Book of Revelations, who had come to destroy Christianity. After initially trying to forget the whole thing, from 1909 he began taking the messages seriously. Crowley left his occult teacher named MacGregor Mathers, and so Mathers started a psychic war against Crowley. They called up demons with whom they attacked each other, and Mathers lost. Demonic warfare is supposedly very common amongst the Brotherhood Illuminati. In later years, Crowley became a guru for many of the young within the Flower Power movement, which is ironic because the Flower Power movement was based upon peace and love. He welcomed the dawn of World War I in order to sweep away the old age to begin anew. He became head of the Otto in Germany, which gave his vast influence over similar people in Germany. Hitler was influenced by Crowley, and Crowley even tried to contact Hitler during World War II. In his book Confessions, he claimed that he had been initiated as a 33rd degree Mason in the ancient and accepted rite of Masonry, Aya and AR. In his own words, he received the initiation after he had helped an individual with a mystical order called Lil, which is claimed to be the oldest of Crowley's organizations. Although he had connections in Freemasonry, he wasn't overly fond of some of their teachings. He made the following remarks in his book Confessions and said, "What is Freemasonry? I collated the rituals and their secrets, much as I had done the religions of the world, with their magical and mystical bases. As in that case, I decided to neglect what it too often actually was. I propose to define Freemasonry as a system of communicating truth, religious, philosophical, magical and mystical, and indicating the proper means of developing human faculty by means of a peculiar language whose alphabet is the symbolism of ritual, universal brotherhood and the great moral principles, independent of personal, racial, climatic and other prejudices, naturally formed a background which would assure individual security and social stability for each and all." The question then arose, what truths should be communicated and by what means promulgated? My first object was to eliminate from the hundreds of rituals at my disposal all esoteric elements. Many degrees contain statements, usually inaccurate, of matters well known to modern schoolboys. Though they may have been important when the rituals were written, I saw no point in overloading the system with superfluous information. Another essential point was to reduce the unwieldy mass of material to a compact and coherent system. I thought that everything worth preserving could and should be presented in not more than a dozen ceremonies, and that it should be brought well within the capacity of any officer to learn by heart his part during the leisure time at his disposal. In a month at most, Theodore E. Russ, 1855 to 1923, joined the Otto and his lodge name was Brother Merlin. He contacted Crowley in 1912 and Crowley became a member also and was given the name Brother Baphomet. Baphomet is portrayed as a half-human, half-goat figure with a goat's head. Under E. Russ, the Otto developed its sexual rites and Crowley later broadened them. Crowley took over leadership of the lodge not long afterwards. Crowley was involved in espionage during the wars because he worked for both the US and British intelligence, writing deliberately absurd, counterproductive German propaganda during the First War. According to John Simmons, author of The Medusa's Head, Crowley said of Hitler that I never met someone as demonic as Herr Hitler. Why do you think I spend so much time with him, and come when he bids me? Simmons also says that Crowley and Hitler exchanged these words, Hitler, and are you an angel of darkness? Crowley, you'll find out in good time all about me. For the present, I'll say this, if I were an angel of light, you wouldn't want to know me. Crowley asked people to call him the Beast 666, and that was how he signed his name. He spent time in Italy but was expelled by authorities there because his disciples were accused of sacrificing human infants in occult rituals. According to a source, he revived ancient Dionysian ceremonies, and in a 1921 ritual he induced a he-goat to copulate with his mistress and then slit the animal's throat at the point of orgasm. He wrote in his book Magic in Theory and Practice of his doctrine, "But the bloody sacrifice, though more dangerous, is more efficacious, and for nearly all purposes human sacrifice is the best." He also said that the animal should therefore be killed within the circle of the triangle, as the case may be, so that its energy cannot escape. An animal should be selected whose nature accords with that of the ceremony. Thus, by sacrificing a female lamb one would not obtain any appreciate quantity of the fierce energy useful to a magician who was invoking Mars. In such a case a ram would be more suitable, and this ram should be virgin. The whole potential of its original total energy should not have been diminished in any way. For the highest spiritual working one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. According to J. McCall Thomas Hayes in his book Rise of the New World Order, Crowley once bragged to have ceremoniously sacrificed 150 children in 1 year among other demonic acts. Hayes claims that Crowley was allegedly a 90th degree Miss Wainwright Freemason, a black magic echelon of Freemasonry. Hayes also claims that Crowley was a personal tutor of Aldous Huxley and was friends with the founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard. Crowley spoke of participating in Masonic rituals in the United States and was involved in other rites of Freemasonry. He was a Grand Inspector General of Scottish Rite Freemasonry and involved with others that went deeper into the occult. In a book entitled Secrets of the German Sex Magicians there are comments about the ritual use of pain, and it attributes Crowley in the perverted practices of bestiality in the consumption of bodily fluids during rituals. His practices became even more disgusting by offering his disciples Inchafaloo goat excrement as part of the rituals. In Rise of the New World Order by J. McCall Thomas Hayes, he describes that during a human sacrifice and/or sex magic ritual, a special chemical named adrenochrome is created in the blood of the victim, and it is then used by the Luciferian elite as a mind-altering drug. The more the victim is terrorized, the more this substance is created through adrenaline. The drug-laden blood is drunk, which puts them into the same realms as demonic entities. Crowley died in 1947 but has influenced many. He is accused of being the person who invented backwards messages on music recordings used by the Beatles, Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones, although it has not been proven. Ozzy Osbourne wrote a song entitled Mr. Crowley. Jimmy Page owns Crowley's old mansion as well as a large collection of his belongings. The Beatles have him on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. One of Crowley's disciples was a self-taught chemist called John Whiteside Parsons, aka Jack. Werner von Braun called Jack Parsons the true father of American rocketry. Parsons, who created the formula for solid rocket fuel, was also involved with L. Ron Hubbard, Dianetics, Scientology, Battlefield Earth, and Robert Heinlein, author of Stranger in a Strange Land. Parsons had a crater on the dark side of the moon named after him. He died in 1952.